يا عبد الرحمن. عبد الله رشوان.
Here.
Yes, I'm here.
أبو طالب. أبو طالب not here. Okay, أدهم here. أحمد حسام. أحمد حسام. مجدي.
Here. Here.
مجدي here. حسام here.
Here.
Miss.
Yes, أبو طالب you're here. I know.
Miss, I'm here.
Okay, مجدي here. أوطة.
Here.
كراش.
Here.
مهاد. مهاد.
Here.
لواح. ياسر.
Here.
أبو رجب. حفيلة. حفيلة. اوكي بوميكا. بوميكا دوبلينا.
Here.
فرح. بحر. اوكي
Here.
فرح هاشم.
Here, Miss Sally.
هنا هاني.
Here.
هنا ياسر.
Here.
جنى.
Here.
كريمان. لورا.
Here.
ماهي.
Here.
نور العربي.
Here.
اوكي ريتاج.
Here, Miss.
سلمى.
Here.
سما.
Here.
زينة.
Yes, Miss.
زينة البغدادي. اوكي. So أحمد حسام just entered. أحمد you're here, right? So I have only لواح, أبو
Yes.
رجب, and كريمان. طب let's wait بقى till the end of the session because I take the attendance at the end also. Let's start our lesson today by a quick revision on what we have already studied. We start by this. Okay. The physical geography of Australia and New Zealand. We have said that although Australia is all surrounded by water, but it is not an island. It is considered the, who can tell me Australia is the?
Can I answer?
Yes.
It is the smallest continent on Earth.
Yes, it is the world's smallest continent actually. It is divided into 3 main regions. Who can tell me the 3 main regions?
Me.
Debelina, go ahead.
The Western Plateau, the Central Lowlands, and the Eastern Highlands.
Thank you very much. We have the Western Plateau, the Central Lowlands, and the Eastern Highlands. Let's start by the Western Plateau. Who can elaborate about them? Laura? Laura, go ahead.
Yes, it's a very rocky plateau,
Mm-hmm.
and it's they have few water sources,
Yes.
and they have the mountain ranges, which is the McDonnell and the Musgrave.
Thank you very much. It has the McDonnell and the Musgrave mountain ranges. It makes up half of Australia, and it is rocky with few water sources. Let's move to the Central Lowlands. Who can talk about the Central Lowlands? Adham?
The Central Lowlands, right?
Yes.
Okay. In the Central Lowlands, there is a monolith, which is a big stone that measures about 335 meters or 3.5 kilometers long, and it stands alone in the desolate plain.
Yes.
It also has 2 names. The the most
Iris
famous
Rock?
one is yes.
And?
Iris Rock and Uluru. I can't remember it.
It's an Australian name. Yes, the Iris. It's known for the Australian, like the Iris Rock, but it's known for the Aboriginal people as the Uluru. Why it is? Thank you, Adham. Why it is considered very important for the Aboriginal people? Hanahani, why the monolith is considered one of the most important physical feature for the Aboriginal people? Hannah Hani. Debolina.
Because it's sacred.
Yes, and it has what inside it?
The small caves
Mhm.
with ancient original paintings and carvings.
Thank you very much, Debolina. Actually, it's considered scared because it has small caves inside, which has carvings and paintings for the Aboriginal people. Who can tell me who are the Aboriginal people? Who are the Aboriginal people? Abdullah Rashwan. Abdullah,
Yes.
who are the Aboriginal people? Hannah Yasser.
They were the first humans to live in Australia.
Thank you very much. Actually, Aboriginal people at any area who are the first people who live in this area. So we have Aboriginal people in Canada. These are the first people, the first nations who live there. Also, we have Aboriginal people in Australia, which are the first people to live in this area. Then we moved to, yes, Adam has talked about the monoliths, but we have other, something else in the Central Lowlands. What's this place and why it is challenging to live in? Farah Hashim. Farah?
Yes, Miss Sally. Yes, Miss Sally.
Go ahead. We have the Central Lowlands, which are commonly called.
You want to know the landforms in Central Lowlands or what?
I want to know the Central Lowlands are known or commonly known with another name. What is it?
Miss, can I say?
Farah, do you know?
One minute, Miss. I remember.
Okay,
I remember, but I can't.
Okay, take your time. Actually, it's highlighted here to remind you. It's the
Outback.
Yes, the Outback.
Yes.
Why it is challenging to live in the Outback? Why it is challenging to live in the Outback?
Because the country is dry and isolated and most rural.
Yes, it's actually dry, isolated, and it has a strong, harsh wind, which causes storms. Also, it has like desert plains. So it's difficult to find water beneath. And if you want to find water, you need to dig deep inside. So again, Ahmed Magdi, why it is hard or challenging to live in the Outback? Ahmed Magdi? Why
Yes.
it is challenging to live in the Outback?
Outback.
Yes. Be prepared that I'm gonna ask you guys. Ritesh, please answer, then Ahmed will repeat. Ritesh.
Yes, miss. It's isolated and dry, and it has strong winds that cause harsh dust storms.
Thank you. So if people need water, what should they do in the Outback?
To dig.
Yes, thank you very much. Ahmed
Miss, I'm
Magdi.
really sorry, but my mic wasn't opening.
It's okay, Hannah, no problem. Ahmed Magdi, now you can repeat the answer?
Yes.
Tell me, please, why is it challenging to live in the Outback?
Because it's dry. Doesn't have water, يعني.
Yes.
Isolated.
And if you want to find water, you need to dig.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Ahmed. Let's move on to the Eastern Highlands. They are called the Great Dividing Range. Actually, they run parallel to Australia's east coast, and the mountains and the valleys of this range were formed by the folding or the uplifting movements that occurred in the past within the Earth's lithosphere. We have a very important physical feature in the Eastern Highlands. What is it?
Miss Sally.
Yes.
Can you let Uta and Jana in the session?
Okay, 1 minute. Okay, who can tell me about the most spectacular or the most complex ecosystem, and which is located in the Eastern Highlands?
Should I answer?
Yes, go ahead, ya Farah.
The coral reef.
Mhm.
The Great Barrier Reef, I mean.
Yes, the Great Barrier Reef, or this is called also a coral reefs. The coral reef here, it's highlighted in green, actually is made of three main parts. Who can tell me the three main parts that it's made of? Hannah Hani?
It is made of
Hmm.
small coral reef
Huh?
and
Coral reefs that grow and died, and Hannah Yasser, can you continue?
It's a. I'm sorry for the noise. It's made of nearly 3,000 smaller reefs that extend for more than 1,250 miles.
Yes.
And they were formed like millions of years ago. Miss, what did Hannah Hani say? Because I don't want to repeat anything.
It's okay. That's it. That's what I want. Bhumika, you can
Okay.
continue. Bhumika, continue.
Yes, we say hard skeletons
Yes.
and the large coral reefs that are formed but that they don't die.
So actually, this is 11 coral reef of a giant community of marine animals. It's called corals. It's made up of 3,000 smaller coral reefs that have been formed over millions of years. They are known as, they are formed as it is. Coral lived, grew, and died. Hard skeleton that made up the upon layer, large coral reefs that formed. So it's mainly formed with three basic steps or three basic corals. The corals that have lived and died, the hard skeleton, then the large coral reefs has formed. Let's move back to, we have an island on the Australian southeastern coast. We have islands. What are the names of these islands? Uta?
Tasmania, New Zealand, the North and the South Island.
Yes, thank you very much. Tasmania's New Zealand, North and South Islands. These are the two islands or the basic islands that form New Zealand. They are unexplored and they have no rainforests that grow there. Let's move back to the bodies of water. I need to cover all the bodies of water. Who can tell me about the bodies of water that are forming there in Australia? Bodies of water. Let's see. Hannah Yasser. Can you tell me about
The
the
Murray. Okay, there are many rivers,
yes.
like the Murray and Darling River system, that flow in the basin of southeastern Australia. There are many rivers in the Murray and Darling system. Hello.
Yes.
Like Miss, can you hear me?
Yes,
There
we
are
can hear you.
okay. There are underground aquifers
Mhm.
for their waters, and also nearly like 1/3 of their water that is used in Australia comes from these underground sources.
Thank you very much. So basically,
Thank
we
you.
have like rivers, but due to the lack of rain in Australia, it is actually very dry because we have lack of rain. We have only few large rivers that flow across the land, but actually it's very dry. The largest river flow from the eastern mountains is the Murray-Darling River System. The Murray-Darling river system. Actually, it flows through the dry basin in the southeastern Australia. Also, we have too many rivers in the Murray-Darling system that bring too much water to the area, but most of the water in the area is coming from the underground aquifers. Actually, we have many of Australia's people and the plants and animals depend on the underground aquifers. Nearly 1/3 of the water in Australia comes from the aquifers. Okay, so we have two main sources of water there, the river and the aquifers. Let's move, or the underground water. Let's move back to New Zealand. New Zealand is made up of two main islands. What are they? Uta,
North New Zealand and South New Zealand.
and also we have plus many small islands.
Many small islands.
Yes, all of them are actually located on the Pacific Ocean. But they are very far from any land masses. Okay, so they are very isolated. Actually, the geographers has said that the main reason behind the formation of these islands were movements in the lithosphere that has pushed the land that would become New Zealand up out of the ocean. So this land actually was under the ocean, and many movements have pushed the land up from the Pacific Ocean, and it has formed New Zealand. Okay, these processes that have happened in the lithosphere. Then it shaped the land of ice and liquid and has craved basins and eroded rocks into unusual shapes. Also, another reason for forming these islands were the volcanic eruptions and earthquakes, which has brought fertile valleys and plains in a row of sharp mountain peaks. Today, New Zealand's land are protected as national park and nature reserves. Okay, because it's very beautiful and it has unusual landscapes. So again, who can tell me the reasons behind the formation of New Zealand's islands? Hani?
The first reason, the volcanic eruptions and earthquakes.
Mhm.
And the second one was the movement of glaciers and liquid water
Mhm.
had made a basin and eroded rocks.
Yes, so mainly it was a volcanic activity and also a movement in the lithosphere which has pushed the land from the ocean. Also, we have like two different, or because also of the huge volcanic activity, we have two different kinds of water there. What are they? Who can tell me what are they? The two types of water there? Water bodies بقى there. Okay, let's see. Adam Sadat.
Yes.
What are the bodies of water that are located in New Zealand? We have a very large lake. We have a massive crater.
Okay, 1 second.
Mhm.
There is the Pacific Ocean. No.
Pacific Ocean is
What?
located on the Pacific Ocean. But I'm asking about the bodies of water inside New Zealand.
Yes, wait, I'm remembering 1 second. Can't remember.
Utah.
أنا عارف ليك تابو تقريبا.
Yes, Lake Tambu. Yes, it's one. It's actually the largest lake there, and it's in a massive crater that's formed by also volcanic eruptions millions of years. What's very important about this lake? It is actually it's surrounded by fertile soil.
This is located in a region called Waikato.
Yes, and on the northeast of Lake Tabu is an area famous for hot springs. What's meant by hot springs? Debolina, what's meant by hot springs?
It is pools of hot water that happens in the like naturally.
So we have hot springs and we have also geysers. What are the geysers? Laura, what are the geysers?
Yes, they are hot water, like hot springs out of the ground.
Yes, shoots out of the ground. So what's the difference between the hot springs and the geysers? Who can tell me what's the difference between the hot springs and the geysers? Okay, let's see.
Can I answer?
Okay, go ahead.
Hot springs are pools of hot water that occur naturally. يعني naturally, you see hot water, this is a hot spring. But geysers are areas where suddenly you see hot water coming out of the ground.
Yes, suddenly hot water are coming out of the ground.
Like العيون المائية, something like this.
Yes. Okay, so this water in hot springs and geysers are warmed by heat energy that deep from the earth. So they are actually warmed. They are warmed. How they are warmed? What's the reason behind that they are very warm? Hani, tell me why they are warmed. As you can see here in the pictures, it's a picture of geysers, and I'll show you another picture of a hot spring. These are geysers and hot springs, okay? Who can tell me why this water is warm, not cold?
Because they are underground and there is pressure in underground
Because
earth.
they are below the level of the sea. يعني. There are
Yes, Yamihat, huh? What were you saying?
I said because like they are below the they are underground and
Yes, so are heated by
yes.
the energy or the temperature or the heat inside the ground or under the ground, actually, inside the earth. So it is heated, but because they're coming from under the ground, it is heated because they're coming from under the ground. Also, we have the New Zealand's South Island. The New Zealand's South Island is very famous of something. What is it? The New Zealand South Island. Hannah Yasser?
It's famous for the Southern Alps.
Yes, for the Southern Alps. And also
They are mountains.
Yes, the Alp Mountains. They are
May I
towering
continue?
mountains that cover hundreds of miles along the western side of the island. Also, the southern end of the island is filled with variety of landform, including who can tell me what other landforms are there? Bomika? Bomika?
Sadie, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. We said that the southern end of the island is filled with variety of landform. What are these landform, ya Bomika?
The Southern Alps, they are mountains that are
Yes.
covering most of the western part of the island, and they are many fjords. These are some deep glaciers that are filled with water, and it also has the Ring of Fire. New Zealand is located in the Ring of Fire, and
Yes.
the Ring of Fire are active volcanoes.
Yes, so again, New Zealand's South Island is famous for the Southern Alps. All of you know طبعا from your study from Europe that the Southern Alps are towering mountains that cover hundreds of miles along the western side of the island. Another natural features or another landforms are the fjords. Fjords are deep glaciers valleys. Fjords. Fjords are deep glaciers valleys that filled with the ocean water, okay? These are fjords. Also, New Zealand is located on the Ring of Fire, which make it a very important area because it has active volcanoes and earthquakes because طبعا of the frequent movement of the tectonic plates. Any area that lies in the Ring of Fire would suffer from the volcanoes and the earthquakes. And then the volcanoes and the earthquakes will result in having more or new landform, such as the mountains and the islands. And these all come because of the tectonic plates, okay? So now you can compare between Australia's and New Zealand's landform. Let's wrap up the lesson because I will start at this part. Tomorrow, inshallah, I will be covering the climate. But I want you to compare, after we have studied all, compare between the New Zealand and the Australia's physical geography. Let's start by Australia. Hannah Hani, can you tell me, and Hannah Yasser, I want Hannah Hani and Hannah Yasser together to compare between Australia's and New Zealand landform.
Yes, okay.
Okay, Hannah
Of
Hani, let's
course.
start by how many geographic regions are divided in Australia?
3 regions,
Yes.
and they are the Western Plateau, the Central Lowlands, and the Eastern Highlands.
Okay, and Hannah Yasser, can you tell us about the physical features of New Zealand? They are consisting of two.
Physical features of New Zealand, they are consisting of two main islands, which
Yes.
are called the North Island and the South Island, plus also like many other small islands.
Thank you very much. Hannah, let's move to the Western Plateau. Can you tell us about the nature of the Western Plateau?
Yes, the Western Plateau is a rocky and dry plateau. And the central.
Let's wait. It's rocky and what about the water sources?
It is rocky and dry, and it have few water sources.
Yes.
It have salt lakes, and it contains also two mountains, which are the McDonnell and Musgrave.
Thank you very much. Let's move back to the Central Lowlands. Tell me about the two, what it's called and the one features inside.
The Central Lowlands, the other name of it is the Outback.
Yes.
And it is a rough, dry region. It have also rivers that run through.
And it has something called the, which is a standing alone stone. It is the monolith.
The monolith.
The monolith. Thank you. And let's move to the eastern part. It has part two, a very important landform, which is the Great
Diving Range.
Thank you, Hannah. Let's move to Hannah Yasser about the southern island and the northern island. What are the most important physical features there?
The most important physical features are they have lots of
like volcanic plateaus.
Yes, like the volcanic eruptions have carved volcanic plateaus throughout the millions of years.
Yes.
They have low hills, they have fertile valleys, plains, and rows of sharp mountain peaks.
Thank you very much. What about the water bodies? Water bodies inside the northern and the southern island.
They are surrounded by the Pacific Ocean, but in the islands they have Lake Taupo, which is the largest lake in New Zealand, which had formed over a million years ago by a massive crater left behind by volcanic eruptions. They have the hot springs.
Yes.
Sorry. I will go back to Lake Taupo. Lake Taupo is in a region that is called Waikato, which also Waikato, which is like a very important region. The second body of water are the hot springs, which are pools of hot water that occur naturally, and the geysers, which are hot springs that shoot from underwater. They are both they both are warmed by the heat energy from underground, the crust. The difference between them is hot springs is like a pool of water that has that you can relax in, and it's sometimes used for medical reason, but geysers just suddenly shoot from earth.
Thank you very much, Hannah. Let's move back to Hannah Haney.
Thank you.
Hannah Haney, can you tell us about the water bodies inside Australia?
Yes, but before this, we'll talk about the ecosystem, the Great Barrier Reef. Have coral reefs, and it is made up of nearly 3,000 smaller coral reefs extending for more than 1,250 miles. And they will now talk about the islands. There is the Tasmania Island. It have mountains and valleys, plateaus that cover its surface. And now the waterways. The waterways, there's only the important river system is Murray and Darling, and they don't have. There's no rain there, so it is most of the time dry.
Yes.
And the second resource of water, the aquifers.
Thank you very much, Hannah. Thank you, Hannah Yasser. Thank you guys for your participation. Anyone want to ask any question for next session, for tomorrow's session? I want you to prepare the climate of the region, okay? Tomorrow we'll be talking about the climate of the region in both Australia and New Zealand. Anyone want to ask any question?
Miss Sally.
Yes.
What is in page 736 fjords?
Fjords, okay. The fjords are, this is the definition that I've just mentioned. These are deep glacier valleys that filled with ocean water. You'll find a picture of it, I guess, in the book here. Let me show it to you. I guess it's here. I guess this part, is it? It's actually, these are deep glaciers, valleys that filled with water that coming from the ocean, okay? I'll show you tomorrow more clarifying pictures if you don't get it.
Thank you.
You're welcome, guys. Guys, anyone want to ask any question? Okay, see you tomorrow, inshallah.